So I tried turning on my webcam, but for some reason it's saying it's not connecting. So you guys get to see my profile picture, but here we go. So for this series, this is how to planning assessments using TSTM, or teaching skills that matter. So TSTM was a program that was provided to us like a national program, and only 4 of us teachers were able to be a part of it, along with the director, Tina Height. And so that's what I'm just going to be explaining a little bit and telling you guys how it's changed my teaching skills, and just different experiences that I've had with it. And hopefully it brings something for you all that you guys can implement and use within your own classrooms. So maybe if I click the right button, there we go. So along with me, I think everybody knows each other, but I'm Mariah. I am the newest one to this group, so it's really lots of fun. Working with Don and Monse, it's just been a blast. I've learned so much from them, but I'm your presenter. And then, of course, we have Monse. Monse, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, you guys know me already. We've been doing this job for a long time with Don. Before we created this kind of team, and then Mariah came on board, and we are so happy to have you here. Thank you.
All right, thanks. And Don?
Yep, happy to be here as part of the ELA team and ESL, and I'm really excited that we have a new state director who has taught ESL, so she understands what we do, and I'm looking forward to some support from her along the way. It's going to be good.
Exactly. All right, thank you guys. All right, so some quick objectives that just kind of thinking forward on what we're going to be doing. But at the end of this webinar, you guys should be able to identify the essential skills in order to incorporate them into daily lessons, implement the use of the TSTM analysis tool for existing lessons, and design or modify future lessons and assessments using the TSTM analysis tool. So there's a couple of things that we're going to be looking at. Of course, with everything, there are some modifications that can be done. So you use it as much as you can, adopt it into whatever program you're using. And so hopefully these skills or these materials that are presented today will help you in some way within your classrooms. So just a quick check-in. When you are presenting anything in your classroom, what skills do you implement into your class, or what skills do you assess? And you guys can share on the chat, or you guys can turn on your mics. What skills do you feel you really need to implement into your classroom in order for students to become successful? Or what skills do you assess?
I'm not quite sure what you're asking for, so.
So like, is there a particular set of skills? Like, I know most of you guys teach ESL. So what is a skill? Like, do you teach them financial goals or financial literacy? Do you teach them critical thinking skills? What skills do you use, or do you even assess any of these skills? Or is it just curriculum? Do you just teach content?
I teach a lot of test taking skills as we're, because a lot of my students are doing the HiSET or the GED. So I will, as we go along, I'll just use little tips like today about how to figure out what a word means, with the words around it.
Oh, the context clues.
Right.
Perfect. Thank you, Nancy. So what are other skills? Does anybody have any other skills that maybe they really try to implement within their classroom?
I would like to share. I like to teach a way of self-awareness, like telling students, do you understand? Can you communicate if you understand or no? Do you feel comfortable being in the class? Things like being aware of the environment and their skills. So I know that sounds very abstract, but even if they can communicate with me, like they try to communicate, I love when they give me those cues, hey, slow down, I need to understand. I didn't get that, because especially ESL students sometimes will not tell you in some cases, especially if they are new in a classroom, how they really feel.
Exactly. That's a really good one.
I missed part of that because I accidentally kicked myself out. What did you say you used?
Self-awareness, teaching self-awareness in the classroom, how they can assess if they are learning or they are not learning, they are confused. So kind of assessing themselves in the environment and in the classroom. That's those skills. And Dawn in the chat just said, speaking, listening, reading, writing, pronunciation in a context of real life English application.
Oh, those are really good set of skills. Perfect. Does anybody else have anything else that they would like to share? Awesome. Then we're just going to continue right on. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, Emily. I'm glad you made it.
Hi, Emily.
Hi. Thank you.
Perfect. So we're just going to continue right on. So before we actually jump into, using the tools and whatnot, what exactly is TSTM? So I'm going to go over a quick overview. And so I know I didn't write it and I probably should have, but TSTM is Teaching Skills That Matter. And so the whole point of the TSTM project was to encourage teachers to begin teaching the actual skills that are needed for students to become successful, not only as students, but as members of the community. So what this does is it focuses on 9 skills, which are adaptability and willingness to learn, communication, critical thinking, interpersonal skills, navigating systems, problem solving, processing and analyzing information, respecting differences and diversity, and self-awareness. Okay. So these are the 9 skills that they have figured out, that you can implement into the classroom, no matter what the content is, no matter what the activity is. You can incorporate it in some way. And these are the skills that people need overall, whether it's in the classroom or beyond, in a job, in the community. These are the essential skills that a lot of people, especially a lot of the younger generation, tend to lack. And so TSTM worked to figure out what these skills were in order to make, again, successful students or just successful members of the community. So they focus on the 9 skills, and then they go to 5 content areas. What are the most important content areas that students need to work at or understand? So those were workforce preparation, the digital literacy, health literacy, financial literacy, and civics education. Again, these were all things that they looked at and said, these are essential content areas that tend to be overlooked, that we don't really focus on a whole lot, that really need to be addressed. And we can address it in all the other content areas that we look at. So if you're doing something with history or science or teaching the ESL classes or reading and writing classes, all of these can fit in there in some sort of way. So it's building those content areas that, again, we don't tend to really focus on because we're so focused on, especially if you teach HSE classes, we're just intent on, trying to get them to pass. And so building up these content areas were really important for the TSTM program. And then the last thing that they really focus on is the 3 approaches, which is integrated and contextualized approaches, the problem-based learning, and the project-based learning. And with these 3 approaches, they found that it was more effective to do something that could, that were bigger than simply taking a test. These were things that would help to apply these skills in these certain content areas in order to show progress or in order to show a wider understanding of the world around them. So it really does have this 9-5-3 kind of structure where 9 skills, 5 content areas, and 3 approaches. So why TSTM? Why is TSTM so important? Why are these skills and this style, this structure essential? What does it actually do? So when using TSTM, it allows teachers to focus on the skills that are essential beyond the classroom. And I think that's one of the biggest things is that so often we forget that students are more than just students. They have a life, they have things that are around them. So TSTM is working with the mindset that we want students to go beyond. We want them to become productive members of the community. So it built on the content areas that are essential to becoming that effective member of the community, to society, and just to help build them, kind of get a lot of these students that we see, either they're low income or they have that language barrier or they're struggling with getting their high school diploma. We're really looking on building some of those skills so that they can get out of that proverbial rut into something better into their community. They want to become that productive member of society. And then also by using TSTM, it provides more interaction and connection between teachers, students, classrooms, community, all kinds of people. It creates that sense of being able to communicate and connect on a deeper level than never seen before. And so we're going to go in a little bit, but I want to just kind of go over what I've experienced with TSTM, is especially online. And when I first jumped in and I thought about the TSTM program, it was supposed to be face-to-face, and it was supposed to be about a year long process where you joined and you were supposed to go to the conferences and meet with your coach. And that was impossible because of COVID. And so I really had to think about how all of these skills could actually work in an online setting. And what I've actually figured out is I have deeper connections with my students now than I have before, simply by implementing some of these skills and giving the students a wider look at the world. And so I know TSTM, it sounds like, well, it's just another one of those programs. It's just something else that we have to kind of implement, or something else that is a little bit mind-boggling. It's a lot of steps. It's a lot of materials, but it really is effective because it creates a different environment for the students that they've never seen before. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from using TSTM. So I'm going to kind of show you, because like I said, this was a year-long project. So it's really hard to put a year-long's worth of material, curriculum into 30 minutes. So I'm just going to take it piece by piece and show you the most effective part that I have used in my classrooms and how it's helped me as a teacher. So analyzing a lesson plan and analyzing a lesson and planning an assessment is kind of where I'm taking this from. And so with the TSTM, they have a toolkit of materials, of lesson plans and documents that you can use and you can manipulate and play with. And so it's really fun to see it. But this one in particular is the unit overview tool, or the analysis tool, where it kind of gives you, as a teacher, you want to kind of take a step back and say, all right, what am I planning? It's almost like a lesson plan, but it's more of looking at your materials and seeing what you are incorporating and what you're lacking, or trying to see if there's something else that you can add into it. So for this one, it goes over the very basics of the unit levels, and I know some of it got cut off, and I'll show you guys here in a little bit. But it shows the unit levels, it shows the content areas, and then it shows the skills. Okay, so all of this right here. So as a teacher, what you could do is just kind of fill it in and then build off of it. So of course you do have the unit objectives, and objectives are important, for you as a teacher to kind of recognize what you are planning and preparing to present, and then also for the students, so they know what they're going to be facing and what kind of materials they also need to incorporate, or they also need to start thinking about learning. Any lines of inquiry, the essential questions that are forms the threads that hold the unit together. What are those lines of inquiry? What are you needing to make sure that this lesson flows together and is built properly? Any of the main standards that are addressed. I know with our program, we have all of our course calendars, and so all of the CCRS standards are there. Any other standards that you may have that you want to incorporate, again, just to make sure that you are touching the skills, or you are touching the standards that are provided to us that we are supposed to be doing with the state. I know a lot of times I get really excited and I start planning all of these great, big, beautiful lessons, and they look like so much fun, and I get really excited. And then I have a hard time finding a CCRS standard that goes with it. So sometimes it's important to find out what those standards are before actually creating your your lesson for the day. But you do want to make sure that you have it in there, again, for yourself as a teacher to know what you need to address. And then any added additional standards, financial planning standards, or if you have one of the any of your ESL books or any of the HSE books, they may have their own separate standards that you want to incorporate as well. This box right here was not one that was actually mandatory. It was just one that a lot of teachers said, we do have these additional standards that we like to put in there because maybe they're a little bit more friendly, or they're more guided towards different classes, and the students like to know what those are. So I'm going to just bring it up right quick. And I'm going to be going through a couple of different pages here. So this is the actual TSTM overview tool or the analysis tool. Okay, so you have your NRS levels, the unit and the theme title, the length of the class, the content areas. So this is just their template. And so what I started doing is I have my template, and I'm really, really bad at creating lesson plans. I know I've said it several times, is just that's not my style. I don't just say, okay, I'm going to build a lesson plan from this. I'm really not that organized. I promise I am not that organized. But once I started looking at this, it kind of helps me to build some of my materials. And so this is what I do. And it's very much chicken scratch because these are my thoughts. This is how I understand it and how I organize it. So this was starting last year. We have a class called Read Your Rights. And for one of the lessons, it took me about 4 classes, live sessions, to go over the Bill of Rights. And so for here, I just had Bill of Rights, and then I have my civics education. And then I addressed which contents or which central skills that I wanted to cover. And when I did this beforehand. So that way I can analyze it afterwards. And so I had processing and analyzing information, self-awareness, respecting differences and diversity, and critical thinking skills. So all of these were the ones that I had planned because based on the materials that I was giving them, I felt that was going to be the best one. And then right here, I just kind of filled it in and went through it. And these ones right here, and I really should have put it in a different color, but I knew what I was talking about, and I really didn't plan on you guys seeing this, and I didn't have time to go back and make it look pretty, but I knew that these were my my thoughts for afterwards. So I was actually putting in thoughts afterwards. And then I have, of course, I addressed that it's in the calendar and there was no additional standards. And then this bottom one is common misconceptions and misunderstandings of the learners, anything that the learners might be experiencing that would interfere with, or what the students understand that might interfere with their learning, excuse me. And so one of the things that I really realized with my students, and this one I figured out afterwards, is that they didn't understand what civil rights were, and they didn't know their basic rights, and they didn't understand that. And so I had to put that in there afterwards, is they kind of thought rights were fluid. They didn't really qualify for everyone. Not everyone had the same rights. And so I kind of had to address that and talk about, you know, what were their misconceptions that I had to really kind of backtrack to help them learn. And then right here, this was notes, but I really felt like this for me was a review, because whenever I do my processes and with learning TSTM, what I figured out is that it's like a circle. It all comes around at some point. So I do, like, we do the assessment or even the 9 skills, the content area, and then your assessment or your approach. All of them seem to rotate back around at some point. And so this was my notes afterwards is, you know, what did I notice that they needed to work on? What needed to be done before I actually got to the Bill of Rights, which was, you know, making forms friendly, giving them the pre-information, learning about context clues, doing the reading frequency and become fluent in reading. And then my assessments is how I was going to be teaching them. So I had 2 of them. Is I had a problem-based and a project-based. And because this was last year when the Black Lives Matters movement was really strong and going full force, we talked about it and we had the problem-based activity of Black Lives Matters and then connecting it to the Bill of Rights and what was going on that threatened the rights of many of these African-American people, and why did they feel the need to protest, and what were their rights as protesters. And so we really talked about the problems around it and tried to figure out what a better solution might be. And it was a lot of interaction and a lot of communication. It did not go over as fluidly as I thought it would because this was my first time doing anything like this online. And so the second time that I did it, we talked about more of a project, is how could they build a Bill of Rights and how would they address it to someone who is coming to the United States. And so it changed up a little bit because, you know, for one, a lot of people haven't really talked about Black Lives Matter. And so it wasn't something as current as normal. And so this did change in the end. And so this is how I have mine and how it really helped me to kind of figure out in the end. And I think by the end of it, what I realized is that I did all of these, but then they also had like some communication that were in there. And then I also realized that this was a skill that I needed to teach them, is that adaptability and willingness to learn, because a lot of them were very stuck in their own ways. They were like, these are what I understand as rights, and they didn't want to learn anything else. So it was really trying to figure out, how could I teach these skills? Now, of course, critical thinking was like bringing up the problems. Respecting differences and diversities was talking about these different groups, Black Lives Matters, the LGBT community, just stuff like that, to help them understand, that there's differences and diversities. We talked a lot about that. We talked about women's rights. We talked about so many other things. And so that one I know we addressed pretty well. Self-awareness, I wanted them to become understanding of who they were and what they understood about themselves and their understanding of the content area and the world around them. And so that one we really had to work on, because a lot of them seem to detach themselves from these, because what a lot of our students that come through, they want, especially for HSE, because this is the class that I taught, was the HSE class, is a lot of them felt that they just need to get to their GED and they don't need to connect themselves to the material, which is something that we really had to work on, and kind of just get them to that point where they can connect, and they should be self-aware of all the things that are going on around them, with themselves and with everything else in the world. And then the last one, processing and analyzing information, was pretty easy because it's something that they do constantly. And so I knew that was a skill that we were going to work on. Now, this worked for the first term, and then the second term, which I left them all at home, I'm sorry, but I ended up making my own one based on that analysis tool, just for a little bit easier, because I do work things in my mind, they work a little bit differently, but it's the same thing, just organized differently. So the name of the lesson, the central skills that are used, the content area, and then the approaches, or my assessments, because my assessments always tie back in some way. And so most of mine, I like having project-based learnings. I like doing the problem-based learnings. All of those are fun. The integrated and contextualized, those are the easy, the quick quizzes and whatnot. I do implement all of these things, but it's always easy to kind of figure out those skills and the content areas in order to figure out your assessment. I've seen very few people who figure out their assessment and then work backwards. It's usually always a forward motion. So if you have all of these, it's easy to figure out which assessment you're going to use. And then right here, I just had to think about which resources do I want to use, because I usually have these big, bright, beautiful plans, and then I never get to them. And so it's really nice to just put resources that you would like to use, or resources that you have used in the past. And then just kind of think about how you're going to measure success. Think about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Are you going to be doing a project? Are you going to be doing a quiz? How are you going to measure that success? Is it going to be a simple, I know, especially when we're face-to-face, we like to do like exit questions or stuff like that, or thumbs up, thumbs down. How are you going to measure that success, and how is it going to show that they are understanding and they are being successful at the skills and the content area that you have presented? And then the last one is review outcomes. And with the review outcomes, I always leave that either for the end of the term or the end of the week to say, did it work or did it not? What do I have to go back and fix, or can I continue moving forward? Because there's always a forward motion. Your teaching should never be static. It should always be constantly moving, changing, and developing, because not every student is going to be the same. Every student is different. And so, but overall, all students need to have these critical skills that are presented. And so I know we're running out of time. I like to talk, in case y'all didn't notice. I don't talk often in these, but I do like to talk. But with this, I know it said, using TSTM, or planning assessments using TSTM. I think the big thing is learning what these skills are in order to find these assessments. And so these skills, again, they go beyond simply teaching content, teaching math skills, teaching 1 + 1 = 2, or orders of operations, or the different theorems that are there, or even in ESL classes, and just teaching them, the basics of the verb to be, the sentence structure. It goes beyond that. It's teaching them the skills that they're going to use beyond the classroom. So I think I'm gonna, does anybody have any questions? That's where I'm gonna go.
There's no anything, I mean, we don't see anything in the chat, so you guys can ask Mariah if you have any questions about what she's been talking about the presentation. Any questions at the moment?
Mariah, can you go back up to the 6 different areas that you used it as? I think it was like health, and they're up there. The health, the digital,
Oh,
financial.
the 5 content areas?
Right.
There you go.
So, I mean, in ESL, we're teaching, like from downtown. We're using right now Downtown 3, and then we're using a book called Grammar Sense 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so how exactly would you go along with this? I think I know, but I want to hear from you. How would you go along with this to put those grammatical things into there? I guess is what I'm trying to ask you.
Awesome. So let's say I've never used Downtown. I've seen it. We've had the book before, but I've never used it. So let's say you're teaching them on what is maybe a grammar concept that you're using right now.
Right now we're studying the present perfect.
So the present perfect. Oh, I haven't taught ESL in a while. So for present perfect, let's talk about using it in financial literacy or health literacy. Maybe talk about how they're going to approach somebody in a doctor's office. How are they going to say it? Are they going to use past tense, present tense, perfect tense? Are they going to explain how they're doing it? And it's not necessarily that you have to teach health. It's teaching the skills that you would use in a health environment. So simply putting it in that kind of sense. So if they're going to the doctors, how would they explain that yesterday they had a cold, or how would they explain that they plan on getting blood? What is it, something that you can tie in with a health vocabulary is what it's pretty much saying. So you're wanting to tie it in, not simply as fill in the blanks of these random sentences, but let's tie it together with how you would approach a doctor, how you would approach a nurse, how you would approach any sort of health professional, or getting medicine. What kind of medicine do you need? Reading prescriptions, stuff like that, or even talking about prescriptions. You would just tie it in with that kind of content.
Okay. I think that's what we're doing.
Nancy, can I ask you a question? Do you have any students interested in citizenship?
Yes, and Dawn, I was going to say that's what we did today, because on Thursdays we always teach civics, and we bring our lessons from the 100 questions of the civics test. And today we talked about, the Civil War, and then we went back and compared that with the United States leaving Great Britain. And then we finished it up.
Interesting. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and then we finished it up because there was a New Zealand story about the police officer that was found guilty.
Yeah, sure.
And, so we finished it up with that. I mean, we brought it all the way forward.
Well, that's good. Well, in the interview questions, there's a lot of present perfect questions, right? Have you ever been out of the country? How many times have you left the country? Have you ever, been arrested? Those questions are pretty common in the interview questions. It might
that's a good idea, Don. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that.
Excellent. Any other questions for Mariah? No? I have a quick question, Mariah, then, I know we don't have much time, but, we've been teaching so much about how to use the 4 C's, right? Like the 4C map is kind of our map to go and plan lessons. How do you align the 4 C's with the lesson plan that you just showed?
So what I have right here is not really a lesson plan. It's more of an analysis, to almost like a check mark. to see if you have it or not. So one of the ways that you could do it is it's easy to merge, and it really depends on your teaching styles. Okay. I have not used the 4Cs in a long time, as I should, just because I'm not that organized. But it's easy to just merge them together. You know, a lot of it is already there. So let me come right back here.
Yeah, so I see that you will use this first, right? Just to see if you include that or no. How you will use it.
Yeah, so like use this first to kind of think about where you're going. So this is to point you in a direction. And so that's what it is. It's to point you into a direction to be able to build your or to build your lesson plan. It's not a lesson plan in itself. It's just to point you in a direction. It's almost like a mind web, or is a mind web.
Yeah, no, but I understand. No, I understand. Just to include the 9 skills, and then just align it with the objectives and all the other components. I see that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So this right quick, because let me kind of show you guys right quick. The TSTM toolkit is a huge amount of papers that, of course, they were all aligned because it was a class with the materials that were presented. But this is 18 documents of different materials. And what they have, and I absolutely love it, is their actual planning tool, which is their, you know, their own little, oh, my brain just went blank.
Lesson plan? Yeah.
Yeah, it's right there. Look at that.
No, it's okay. Okay.
So it's all right here, and it goes very, very in depth of how it is used, which is completely different from the 4Cs, because the 4Cs is very, very basic. And so this is very intensive, but I love it. And I have used this this planning tool. But again, if I just start right here, I pretty much get lost, and I always use this as the way my directional. It's that pre-lesson planning tool to kind of give me an idea of where I want to go with it. And then because I don't like, once I make a lesson plan, I don't like to like mess it up until I'm actually going to revise it. And so that's why I have this notes afterwards, so that I can review it on there and then recreate a lesson plan afterwards. So this is really, excuse me, like I said, this is like the arrow to point you in the right direction.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that great answer, Mariah. We don't have any other questions at the moment.
Perfect. And so I know we have our webinar for next week. But if this is something that you guys would like to have, I need to put this one, because every time I go to merge it onto Google Docs, it does something crazy because the formatting is so intensive, so complex, I guess is the better word, that it doesn't merge over very nicely. But I do have the other one that I don't know where it is right now. There we go. I do have this one that is on there, and this is the one that I do use a little bit more, simply because it's a little bit basic, a little bit more basic for me. But if this is something that you guys would like, I will definitely put it into the chat, so that way we can use it and play with it maybe for the next one. Dawn, Monse, do you guys have any questions?
No, I think that's a great idea. So we have our workshop next week from 12:30 to 1:30. And I think it would be a great idea to try this tool in practice. And maybe we can totally do that during the workshop. What do you think, Don?
I like it.
Like it?
I like it.
Great. And of course, Maria, we're going to need your guidance to see if because I do like the idea of having a pre-tool to align my lesson plan and just make sure we are including these important skills into our lesson plan. So yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Perfect. So I just put it in the chat. If you want to make a copy, you just have to hit make a copy, because everybody on there is a viewer. So it's on there for you guys to use. And then maybe over the course of the week, And I know we haven't really talked about the webinar, but over the course of the week, maybe utilize it. Think about how you are doing in your classrooms. Take a lesson that you're going to teach this week and check off some of those boxes, and then see if you really did hit, some of those skills. Now, of course, it only says 3 to 4 skills, so you're not going to be using them all, but just think about the skills that you would really like to teach, or skills that are coming up, in order to kind of better present that as you're going. And then on next Thursday, we'll come back and see how everybody did, how everybody feels about it, if it gave more guidance, or maybe it didn't.
That sounds like a good plan, Mariah. Thank you so much. And I think, we are a little, we passed 1:30. Thank you for staying with us. It's so nice to see you and connect. And I know some of you enter later, but we're gonna post the recording and also the document that Mariah shared. And please come ready for next Thursday so we can implement and use this tool.
Yeah, looking forward to sharing, tossing these ideas around next week. And hello, Celia, by the way.
By the way,
Thanks for dropping in with us.
Great. Well, thank you,
I
everyone.
got off of work a little late, but I hurried home so I could try to get something in. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I hope we can see you next week.
Yes, and I will look at this on the recorded line, or it's been recorded for me.
Perfect.
Where is that, by the way, Monse?
The recording is going to be on our website. Everything is posted in Facebook Workspace, but if you can't find it, just send me an email. We can share the website again with you. We are posting all the presentations there and the resources.
Yeah, it's recorded in the DELT webinar channel, right?
Yes, correct, as well. So we are trying, but we do like to provide all the content, the ELA content, in one place. So if you can't find it, Jamie is the one who uploads the webinar. So it will be soon in YouTube. Okay? No problem.
Thanks, Monse.
Thank you, Mariah, for a great presentation. And if you guys don't have any questions, or maybe you have questions later, come and join us in our next workshop next Thursday from 12:30 to 1:30. We are going to post a flyer so you can join us and just practice and use this tool.
All right.
Can we download the PDF? Is it available?
Yeah, it's in the chat. Could you see there's a link? Let me share it again. So if you click the chat, it's going to be a Google Doc, and you need to make a copy.
Okay.
Okay. Excellent. Mary, anything else that you would like to add before we go?
No, I believe that is it.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. I can't wait till we get meet in person.
Yeah, no kidding.
I missed that.
Really, me too.
Yeah. Yeah, have a good week, or have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.